Hey there, it's Irene, and today on this vlog, I'm actually going to be answering two questions that are kind of two questions in one. And they both came from two of my colleagues actually, and they match up so well that I put them into this one video. It's about 20 minutes long, a little longer than normal, but trust me, there's some good juice in it. I'm covering the topic of something that I call Zen zombies and fitness freaks. And I haven't written about this in a while. I haven't visited this idea in a while. I've been really busy with other stuff, but it just seemed timely that two people on the exact same week sent me a question about fitness and about Zen and mindfulness. So here is my answer to those two questions. Okay, so here is the thing. My background's in fitness. Pretty intensive actually. I did a degree in exercise science. I did my master's in biomedical science and exercise science. I studied and put together an intervention trial that focused solely on high intensity resistance training in older adults, like 65 to kind of 85 years old. This was in Australia back in 2000. So I really dove into the research, the literature around fitness, intensity training, strength training, balance training, you name it, for elderly, for either helping them with just general muscle performance, but also dementia, congestive heart failure, diabetes, I mean the whole 9 yards. And the bottom line from this research I did and what came out at the end is that exercise is a potent, positive stimulus to the human system, and we need it. We just need it. What I found was that a lot of the recommendations would say things like exercise moderately on most days for 30 minutes, brisk walking, swimming, playing a sport that's not too intense. But here's the thing, if you really dove into the research, it was the higher intensities, over 80% of your maximum capacity, high intensity weight training where you're lifting close to 75 to 80% of your maximum. It was that kind of intensity that showed the benefits later in life. There were a whole bunch of studies done with a bunch of Harvard alumni, and it showed that those that were more intense with their aerobic exercise just had healthier lives as time went on. Now, of course, when we looked at that research, it was epidemiology, which means that you're looking back into the history based on medical records, etc. But the thing that was interesting was that when a person embarks on that kind of high intensity lifestyle, they're also typically healthier in other aspects in terms of eating, they have a healthier body weight, etc. So this question comes from Maurizio, and he wrote to me because he was actually on another blog, and they were talking about the benefits. I'm just looking at my computer here. The benefits of exercise and how it improves the brain. Now, the interesting thing, the brain's important, I get that, but in my line of work, I still see the brain as kind of an end organ, just like the heart, just like the digestive system. It's important, but it is influenced by many things, exercise being one of them. Now, one of the things I've also advocated for in the past is the importance of not just industrializing our exercise. And I wrote an article on this a little while ago that I'll link up. This thought that we go to the gym, we pump weights, we can do it totally mindlessly, not paying attention. People are listening to their podcasts, they're watching the news, they're talking on their phone. So Mauricio asks, I would like to know, how do you rationalize this kind of report, which validates, in my view, what you might call, me calling it industrialized exercise? I don't see the mentioned research as invalid, but that it can be perceived as the gold standard for general fitness, advocating ambitious and excessive effort, which is contrary, in my mind, to the teachings of Feldenkrais or Anat Baniel method in my case. So Maurizio is one of my colleagues. He studies and practices something called the Anat Baniel method. One of my main focuses and practices is something called the Feldenkrais method. Now, these two forms of mind-body awareness work They're not exercise. They are there to heighten our capacity to feel, think, sense, act, and be in this world. They do not replace exercise. And I see a lot of my colleagues, they get into these trainings and they go slow, they go soft, not meaning soft necessarily, but many of my colleagues are incredibly unfit, and I don't know why that is, but it's just what I perceive in my observation. And there's this sense that I don't want to effort my body, I don't want to push it, I don't want to increase intensity. But that's not what this work is about. If you really understood the foundations of the Feldenkraisian work that I do, Dr. Feldenkrais was an athlete. He was a high-level judo master. He was a soccer player. He was physical with his body. He just happened to develop this form of awareness work that improved our capacity to perform, function, recover from injury, not get injured. So I think that there's two stories here. One is the somatic awareness mind-body work like the Feldenkrais, the Anat Baniel method, Tai Chi, certain forms of yoga, martial arts, which is Tai Chi. They're there to slow us down and to bring an awareness, it's more than mindfulness, body-based attention to our movement so that we can improve our movement and our function. And then the other side is exercise and the importance of increasing our heart rate, challenging our muscles, our joints, our tendons, our ligaments, our heart, our respiration. Intense exercise is important. And if you're not someone that does that, my suggestion is you find ways to increase the intensity. If it means that you're only used to doing a brisk walk, go for a brisker walk. Find some hills to go up. If you're someone that already walks a lot, start doing light jogging or some form of calisthenics, or even go to the gym. I go to the gym at least 3 times a week. It's not a bad thing. I don't see it as industrial exercise because I'm mindful of what I'm doing. I play it up. I don't always do the same thing. I challenge myself, but I'm also not going to push myself if I'm feeling acute pain in my body. So it all comes down to intelligence, and it comes down to listening. Now, if you can remember at the beginning, I talked about Zen zombies and fitness freaks. That idea came from seeing a lot of the people that I've met in the fitness world, hardcore athletes who are in a sense freakish with their fitness, and they're using it as a coping mechanism. It's an addiction. It's a way of numbing out the connection between their body and their mind. They're doing it as a way of reprieve, to get away from painful emotions, things they don't want to feel. I've been doing this long enough to know, I don't have a science study to back this up, but my observation is bang on. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of individuals that are getting away with very addictive fitness and exercise behaviors. And because it's socially acceptable and we think that these people are great athletes that are, testing their body and pushing their limits, I've seen a lot of athletes physically destroy themselves to the point where they need they need to have things replaced, they need to stop because they get infections because their immune system has been so bogged down, autoimmune deficiencies, adrenals that are shot because they've been pushing and pushing and pushing. So that's where the fitness freak piece comes from. But it does not mean that I do not believe in hardcore physical fitness. It has to come with an awareness and an attention to this is what I'm doing and why. And you also have to learn in this process how to listen to your body. You may have an exercise routine planned out for the week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you go, even though you don't feel well, if you feel fatigued, dehydrated, that's not good. It's different than not wanting to go because you just don't want to go, because it's something different, right? So, this is a whole other topic in terms of sticking to the plan and resolutions and all these things that we tend to, these bad habits of, I don't want to. it hurts. Yes, it's going to hurt a little bit, but there's a difference between acute pain versus that physical discomfort and that lactic acid that we feel when we exercise a little more intensively, right? So to answer your question full circle, Maurizio, we need both. If we can combine really good awareness work with intelligence around what is best for us in terms of finding an intense form of physical activity, that's the magic pill there. So hopefully that makes sense. And if you've got any questions that spur from this, please ask me. Now the second question, remember it was Zen zombies and fitness freaks. The Zen zombie piece I was reminded of by my good friend Ryan Nagy, and great guy, great friend of mine. Maybe I'll have him on and interview him one day. He is also a Feldenkrais practitioner. He does a lot of work now with hypnosis work and people in the fields of psychology and anxiety. But he sent me a message because he was watching a video, and he says to me, these are his words, "Ever since I heard you use that term, meaning Zen zombies, I cannot look at certain meditators the same. I'm watching a short video by a certain person that will remain unnamed. The content is good, but his facial expressions, voice tone, and movement looks like that of a trauma survivor or someone on drugs." So I think this was great. Oh, and then he says, "and not a single smile in the video." Now, I actually saw some of this content and I couldn't watch it because the teacher, a fairly high acclaimed meditator, it was painful to watch. There was zero affect. It was like a person, he was dead. And what really kind of disturbed me is how many folks were really loving this kind of teaching. And I kind of went, well, that's really interesting. But here's the thing, here's the other polar opposite to the fitness freaks. Often what occurs in a lot of hardcore spiritual meditators, and again, I'm all for mindfulness and meditation when it's done in a way that is healthy and safe, and we're not stuck in a shutdown mode. A lot of people are attracted to these more Zen, calm practices because it matches their physiological state. And their physiological state is such that they are in what we call very high dorsal tone. This is a little more sciencey. If you want to learn more about this, you can always do one of my self-study courses that teaches about this. I highly recommend it, especially if you are a provider of health or a coach or a practitioner in the fields that I work with. But a lot of these people, they flock to these quieter, slow, calm. Feldenkrais is really prime for this, actually, because it doesn't stimulate them. Because stimulation in the form of activity, in the form of more affect, is scary. And it's not something typically that is conscious. It is something that is unconscious. And the perception of safety is such that I cannot show affect. I can't be extroverted. I can't be expressive, because if I do so, I will die, or someone will get me, or someone will repress me, stop me, tell me to be quiet. It's that kind of old adage of, children should be seen and not heard. A lot of the cultures that grew up with that have trouble expressing. They have trouble bringing out their affect, their emotion, their energy. And these practices that are very calm become very, very attractive. So there really isn't an answer to what Ryan writes here. It's more of an observation. And the one thing I would say is, if you do want to learn really good mindfulness, meditation, awareness exercises, you want to search and seek out someone that has the capacity to have up and down qualities. And I don't mean manic and depressive. I mean that has resilience in their nervous system, who can smile and laugh and take a joke, but who also can be serious and quiet and empathetic when need be. what I find, and this is true story, when people come into my practice, often it's because they're quite sick, their bodies have shut down, things like fibromyalgia, depression, chronic pain, anxiety. And a lot of these folks, bless their hearts, have been doing meditations. They've been meditating because that's what they believe is important. And what's happened is they've driven their body into a deeper shutdown state. So they actually feel kind of calm, but under the surface, there's a system that is freaking out and really, really chaotic, but they've become really good at suppressing it. The best analogy I can give, if you think about a duck on a lake, you see when they're swimming, their body looks really calm, right, and still. But if you look under at their little feet, they're going like crazy, crazy, crazy. That's often what's occurring when an individual who's meditating and who has a higher state of shutdown in their nervous system. That's often what's happening, and this comes with a lot of health problems. So, for example, if you are someone that has been practicing meditation, mind, body, and various practices, breathing practices, and your physical health is not improving, if your immune system isn't improving, if your digestion still isn't improving, if you still have a lot of pain and tightness, if you can't sleep well, if you're never really feeling rested, if you have adrenal fatigue, but you're doing all the right things, you're doing all this meditation and mindfulness, but you're still not healing, then there's a good chance that your body is not in a state of good immune health. In other words, it's in this deeper parasympathetic shutdown, which we actually need if we go into shock, right? We want it if we go into shock. That's what it's there for, to numb the pain. But we actually don't want to be numbed all the time, because the human body can't live that way. It goes into a low oxygen state. It's like hibernating, right? A lot of my clients also come and see me and they have trouble losing weight, and they don't eat a lot of bad stuff. They exercise, they watch their calories, and they're still not losing weight. And when we really dive into their system and we feel it and listen to it, they're in this deep, deep parasympathetic shutdown. It's a part of the vagus nerve is in its high dorsal tone state. Again, I'm using fancy science words, but trust me, it's a part of the parasympathetic that we want to have for survival, but we should not be living in it 24/7. So bottom line, if I go back to Ryan's thing here, often when we see someone that doesn't have affect and can't smile and put good tone in their voice, they're in this shutdown state. Now, the other thing too, I'm not just making this up. This is actually work that has been pioneered by a doctor by the name of Stephen Porges. He wrote a book called The Polyvagal Theory, and he has been studying the physiology of humans for many, many years. And what makes a healthy human is this capacity to swing back and forth between our nervous systems, being able to be in certain parts of our parasympathetic that need to shut down when we need it to shut down, but also being in parts of our parasympathetic that give us the rest, digest, and social connection, right? So the capacity for facial expression, for me to notice if someone looks sad or if someone looks happy, to match them. It goes back to attachment with children. When little babies are learning how to connect with the world, we coo and we smile and we match what they're doing, and we teach them through our facial expressions. Imagine a little baby having someone with no affect ever, right? Botox moms are like that. They can't smile. They can't show expression. What is that baby going to learn? It's going to learn no expression, only calm. We don't want that. So yes, a lot of these meditators look like trauma survivors, and the thing is they probably are, and that's why they attract and they flock to this kind of work. Again, it's not to say that meditation is not good. That's not the point. The point is that you want to enter into these higher spiritual practices after you have gotten out of these more survival-based instincts of fight, flight, and freeze. Again, another topic to cover in greater detail at another time. So that's the Zen zombie fitness freak situation we've got ourselves into. We need both. We need to address our fitness. As a culture of Western people, we don't do enough of it. But then there's the people that do too much of it. It's all about finding that happy medium and being conscious of what we're doing, being aware. And then the Zen zombie piece is, again, important to have that capacity to be Zen when needed, but we don't want to live in that state all the time. It's not healthy for our metabolism. We want to be in a state where we have calmness and resilience, but we're not shutting down our systems and we aren't able to interact and engage with people. So that's it for today. The sun has gone down. It's getting darker in here. Hopefully this has been useful. Thank you for watching. If you are watching this and you're not on my website, head over to my site, irenelyon.com. Check out all the free goodies I have there. I've also got some really good, unique self-study tools that you can purchase. They're low cost, they're not expensive. They can teach you the deeper details of what I've been kind of putting out throughout this video if you'd like to learn a little bit more and really get under your health, under your stress response, and understand what these survival instincts are and why it's important to understand them so that you can improve not just your physical health, but your relationships and how you think and create. Everything within the nervous system affects everything else. It's one of those systems that touches everything. So take very good care, and we will see you next time.